Hi everyone, my name is Aliyar and you are watching TecTalk. Um, in our last video, we talked about how the Muslim scientists have contributed to different fields and different walks of life in the field of science, technology, arts, music, poetry, literature, philosophy, astronomy, surgery, dentistry, and so on and so forth. So they had a huge impact on the life of the people. And that lecture got me thinking that how people were living life before the advent of science, before the scientific and technological advancement emerges in the world. So then I thought that okay, there are numerous or several topics that we can discuss on this platform. We'll talk about them one by one, but today I am going to talk about the medical history of human lives and how people evolved and how people developed and progressed in the field of medical science. So it's basically a journey through medical history of human life on the surface of the planet. So basically we are going to talk about how people treated diseases and illnesses in the past, and how modern science and technology in the medicine or in the field of medical science has changed the way of treatment or the way of looking at different diseases and illnesses. So in this particular video, it's going to be a comparative analysis of how human beings had very little knowledge about the causes of diseases in the past, and many illnesses were attributed to supernatural forces, bad luck, or divine punishment, and so on and so forth. People had crazy ideas about the diseases or the illnesses that spread in a town, for example, because they had no idea about diseases, and they had no idea about how human body functions and what is the anatomy of human body. So they had no idea about that. So that's why they came up with different supernatural ideas and so on and so forth. So we are going to talk about that in a moment, and then we'll talk about how today science has changed the way we understand and manage health, how we basically have turned that supernatural belief system into evidence-based system or evidence-based practice. So in this particular presentation or in this particular video, we are going to talk about that, how people started taking human health as science, and how they came to know about different tests and trials and vaccines and antibiotics and so on and so forth. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Keep in touch with me in the video, and if you haven't subscribed the channel, do subscribe, share it with your friends. I know a lot of improvements is needed right now, but I hope that with the passage of time, we are going to improve on the platform as a family as well. So now, first of all, let's talk about how human life was before the modern medicine or modern development in the field of science and technology. Let's first talk about the ancient practices of that people practiced in different fields of life in different parts of the world. So medical practices basically was varied across cultures, right? For example, the ancient Egyptians used spells and herbal remedies to treat illnesses, while Chinese medicine employed acupuncture and herbalism. So you see that in different parts of the world, people used different medical practices because there were no scientific standards set up. There were no scientific procedure for curing the illnesses in human body. And then we had this very famous theory in ancient world. It's called humoral theory. In Europe, medicine was dominated by the humoral theory, which suggested that a health was maintained by balancing the four humors: the blood, the phlegon, I don't know I am pronouncing it right, black bile, and yellow bile. So they said that imbalances in these fours, and if you disturb the balance of these four in the human body, you're basically going to be ill or sick. So they defined these four elements and said that if you are going to disturb, if you're going to aid or deduct something from these components in the human body, it is going to be it is going to cause you it's going to cause illness and sickness and so on and so forth. And that's why people treated these diseases or the illnesses with bloodletting, purging, and applying heat and cold. So these are severe and harsh methods of treatment in the past. Then we had people believed in supernatural forces and supernatural elements that cause diseases in human body. So many diseases basically were thought to be caused by evil spirits, curses, and divine wrath. Rituals, prayers, and charms were often used in an attempt to cure disease. So in that particular time, scientific knowledge of pathogens was virtually non-existent, because people did not have these microscopic technology to see the pathogens. So how do we see the pathogens today? We use microscopes, right, in the lab, and other technologies that we use for basically looking for these pathogens in human body. So in ancient times, since there were no technological advancements, what people did is they tried to associate the illnesses and diseases with different supernatural forces or heavenly forces. And they thought that praying, sacrificing, so these were the different style of treatment of diseases. And as we all know that in ancient time, infectious diseases spread across the world. For example, the bubonic plague, cholera, smallpox killed millions of people because people had no knowledge of how diseases spread. So crowded cities and poor sanitation exacerbated outbreaks, right? So cholera or blood death, even dengue. So it was basically ignorance of science and technology at that particular time. I don't know how people managed to live in that particular time. So here in this point of time, I would like to talk about I would like to give you a case study example of the plague. So we talked about bubonic plague, which is also known as plague death. So in the 14th century, the plague killed between 75 to 200 million people across Europe, Asia, Africa, spread by fleas and that lived on rats. The disease spread quickly due to lack of sanitation and urban overcrowding. So these were the kind of disease that we had, and this is a case study. So how people dealt with this disease. So of course there were misconceptions, and people believed that the plague was a punishment from God or caused by miasma, which is a bad air. The real cause, which is Yersinia pestis bacteria, were unknown at that time. So now this was basically how people looked at diseases, right? And now let's talk about how modern science changed that, and let's talk about some major breakthroughs in the field of medical science, in the field of treating illnesses or disease or curing diseases. So the first was the germ theory. Germ theory in the 19th century Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch discovered that microorganism, bacteria or viruses, were the root cause of many diseases. This breakthrough laid the foundation for modern bacteriology. So this is basically germ theory saying that there are something which are causing illnesses in human bodies, let's say bacteria or viruses, which are invisible to human eye. So this germ theory in 19th century was a very first breakthrough that gave us the idea of viruses and bacteria, and then we were able to fight against it. And then we came up with the idea of antibiotics. For example, the discovery of antibiotics starting with penicillin in 1928 by Alexander Fleming, I think, revolutionized the treatment of bacterial infection. Before antibiotics, infections from minor injuries could be fatal. Development of Then we have the development of vaccines. The discovery of antibiotics, starting with penicillin in 1928, revolutionized the treatment of bacterial infections. Before antibiotics, infections from minor injuries could be fatal, could lead to death, and people died. Millions of people died because of bacterial disease. And then we have I think this is the one of the great discoveries that the medical science has ever seen, and it was the invention of vaccines for the first time in human history. So Edward Jenner's development of the smallpox vaccine in 1796 marked the beginning of immunology, the system of the immune system of human bodies, how you can improve the immunity in human body to fight against those viruses. And vaccines have since prevented diseases like malaise, polio, and whooping cough. And recently we faced the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic across the world, and it shuttered down the whole world. But we were developed enough to basically came up with the vaccine in nearly 1.5 years. So this was the invention of vaccines by Edward Jenner. He invented I've talked about him I have talked about him in a video on TecTalk. You can go and check it out. He was basically came up with the vaccine that for the smallpox. Smallpox is something which killed millions of people across the world. So he accidentally, I would say, came up with the cure from cowpox. So he used cowpox disease as a vaccine for smallpox. That was amazing. And then the technology which is in the field of medical imaging, the discovery of X-rays by William Röntgen in 1895 allowed doctors to diagnose fractures and internal injuries without invasive surgery. So modern techniques like MRI or CT scan, CT scans provide even more detailed images. So we'll talk about them now in great detail. I hope I'm not making you bored. So let's talk about germ theory of disease. So what was it? Let's talk about it in a fast pace. So it was discovered in mid 19th century. Pasteur's experiment with fermentation and Koch's work on anthrax identified that bacteria and viruses cause disease, not miasma or bad air as previously believed. So it had a great impact on the life of the people. This discovery radically changed the practice of medicine. It led to the development of antiseptic practices in surgery and sterilization in medical environment. So by this discovery, the infection control was one of the idea that spread across the world. The introduction of sterilization, antiseptics, and later antibiotics dramatically reduced post-surgical infections and improved surgical rates during surgeries. Public health germ theory also led to better sanitation in cities, safer drinking waters, and development of public health systems to prevent the spread of disease. So people now came to know that cleanliness is really important now. So in conclusion, I would say that the evolution from ancient medical practices to modern science based on medicine has drastically improved human health, increased life expectancy, and reduced suffering. With breakthroughs in vaccines, antibiotics, surgery, genetics, the medical field continues to evolve, proving hope for the future. However, there are multiple challenges that still remain there. For example, the antibiotic resistance and access to health care in the underprivileged societies or in the underprivileged regions across the world. The future of medicine, including artificial intelligence and genetic, holds the potential for even greater advancement. So, with the advancement of artificial intelligence and machine learning, medical science will improve. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.